Hi, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the Leadership Loft. I am your host, Lakeisha C. Brooks, and I have a special guest with me today. I'm so excited to have this guest with me. We're going to talk about financial wellness for employees. So, if you're someone who has employees, whether you have a big corporation or maybe you're a small business and you're wondering, what can I do to satisfy that financial wellness that my employees need? Then this is an interview you want to hear. But before we dive in and talk to Jamin and he introduces himself, I want to talk to you about why this interview is so imperative. So, Jamin is one of 8 speakers that we have at the Diversity Blueprint Conference coming up in August, on August 21st. Now, I don't want to talk a lot about that because I will talk about that tomorrow at the 10-minute leadership loft. So, I won't get into that in detail today, but I will say that he is one of our presenters. He's going to talk about financial wellness and mental health. He's going to present a case study about that in August. So we wanted to kind of hear a little bit from him so people can get to know him a little bit better before deciding to invest in our conference. So without further ado, thank you so much, Jamin, for being here. Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone so they can, again, get to know a little bit about you.
Absolutely, Lakeisha. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm very excited, very happy to be part of the Diversity Blueprint for 2024. My name is Jamin Armstead. I'm a financial advisor, business owner. I've been in the industry for about 20 years now, which just means I'm getting old, right? I've had experience on the corporate side with platforms and corporations such as Merrill Lynch, Edward Jones, and Vanguard, to name a few. Decided to start my own firm in 2016 thereabouts, which enabled me to essentially help clients in the best possible way. Sometimes you cannot do that in the corporate space. However, as an independent practitioner, I am able to holistically help my clients in the way that best assists their situation goals and whatnot.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being here. Some people are probably wondering, what in the world does financial wellness have to do with diversity and diversity architects? So we're going to talk about that. So I know that's a burning question for a lot of people. Like, I don't see the correlation here. We are going to talk about it because it is an intersection between the two of them. So, Jamin, I want to first talk about financial challenges. So we all have financial challenges, no matter what end of the economic spectrum you fall on, everyone has challenges. But you say you have 20 years of experience. That's a lot of experience. So over the years, what have you seen are some common financial challenges that employees face? And then how do you see that those challenges impact the overall well-being of employees?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great question. And so a lot of the challenges are really fundamental challenges, right? Um, it's no secret that when it comes to financial literacy, this country lags behind, and so we do see that in this space, right? And so a lot of people are being challenged with fundamental things such as paying their bills and budgeting, being able to save and invest, and understanding efficiently how to do that effectively. Taxes and debt, right? Credit card debt, consumer debt is a huge issue. It's an elephant in the room when people start talking about their finances with family, or sometimes obviously people don't even want to, of course, address it internally within themselves, and they just let that become a silent killer of their budget, right? So it's these fundamental financial topics that are a concern, and there are a lot of things that employers and corporations can do to help alleviate, to help educate, and really to help take a lot of pressure off of employees. Because at the end of the day, yeah, employees are there at their jobs to work, but they're people at the end of the day, and they have real life concerns, just like you and I. And those concerns absolutely can seep out into their performance and other areas of their relationship within that career and with that employer. But I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more of that later.
Absolutely. So I don't know if you've ever done any financial wellness programs and things like that. That's definitely something that we're seeing a lot of organizations do is have financial wellness or financial literacy programs. So, what role do these type of programs play in improving the financial literacy of employees? And then, as a as an impact of that, it may improve overall wellness. So, what have you seen has been the impact of financial wellness programs?
Yeah, absolutely. Financial wellness programs really have a very important role when it comes to improving the quality of life of people, literally helping their self-esteem, right, their peace of mind. So that's an improvement in their quality of life, their quality of work, which I just briefly touched on just a few moments ago. It's actually a mutually beneficial relationship, right? Because it's not only the employee that benefits from an effective wellness program, financial wellness program, also the employer, right? They actually get a more efficient, a more whole, if you will, sound mind, body, spirit employee, right? Which translates into better productivity, better attendance, right? More efficient productivity. And these are things that are really hard to quantify. But you absolutely can start to quantify once you do comparison analysis of pre-financial wellness programs and post-financial wellness programs. So it takes a little time to kind of put some of those numbers together, but absolutely, if employers begin to initiate and really put together sound financial wellness programs, then those improvements of quality of life and self-esteem are going to take place. But also it's going to alleviate some of those fundamental challenges that you asked me about in the first question that people are facing.
Awesome. I heard an ROI study in there. So, Jack and Patty Phillips, if you're listening, I think Jamin just proposed an ROI study to see the impact financial wellness programs and whether or not they improve productivity and things like that. So, I mean, I'm hearing that. So, we may be able to make that happen, Jamin, doing an ROI study with
Absolutely. I'm all over it.
and we have another presenter that works with the ROI Institute. So do I. So that may be something that we can make happen as well. So thank you for sharing that. So you talked about the impact of financial wellness programs and even potential ROI of that as well. So, what are some examples of financial programs that maybe you yourself have initiated or implemented into an organization, or maybe some that you've heard of? Just a few of those financial programs that you've seen that have worked effectively in your own work or other organizations have done as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Financial wellness programs are beginning to become a little bit more trendy, if I could use that word, right? And so some benefits that I've seen, by the way, I do travel across the country. I get some face-to-face time with employees, with all different types of employers and all different types of industries. So I do have that exposure and the benefit of having these one-on-one conversations with real employees every day. And some of the benefits that I've seen that are newer but very, very beneficial, paycheck advances. Right. I think paycheck advances are, I know that when I was a W-2, that was not a benefit for me. Right. I could have used it at some point. Right. Sometimes. Right. And again, it goes to speak of, hey, if your employee is having a budgetary crisis due to an unexpected medical bill, car breaks down, water heater goes out. Right. And they don't have the liquid funds in their checking or savings account, they can tap on that benefit of having a paycheck advance. Right. Maybe get a quick $1,000 in their pocket, right, and pay it back maybe the next pay period. So that's really, really beneficial. Commuter benefits. A lot of employees out there take public transportation, whether it be a bus, train. So they do have a commuter account similar to a flexible savings account or a health savings account for medical plans, that allows you to set aside money, and it's tax deferred. Actually, it's tax deferred. So it gives you that tax benefit, right? But it also allows you to segregate some funds to allocate specifically for your commuter costs. So there are some, programs out there that are innovating in a lot of cool ways to help their employees. And I do believe that they're yielding a benefit of higher morale from their employees, just from the simple fact of showing their workforce that they care. And
Awesome.
they're showing that with benefits such as those.
Oh, that's really cool. I know here in Atlanta, we have MARTA, and I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of maybe organizations here in Atlanta that may be given that benefit for their employees. So, I mean, I've been in Atlanta 20 years. I stopped using MARTA a long time ago, but definitely as an 18, 19-year-old college student, maybe that would have been a really good benefit for me. But yeah, there's a lot of bigger cities like Atlanta where that's probably something that organizations are looking into and they are doing as well. I don't know if you're familiar with some of the student loan repayment benefit that organizations are offering. Could you speak a little bit to that if you have any experience or maybe knowledge of that as well?
Yeah, so that is actually a newer benefit, if you will, as well, right? So many folks are saddled and burdened with a high amount of student loan debt, right?
Me being one of
And
them.
yeah, I know a little bit about that myself. So, a lot of employers are spearheading programs to help their employees pay back those student loans. Some of them are swallowing some of the interest. Some of them are actually matching payments, right? Similar to a 401k, if you will, with a match. So there's a lot of innovative ways that some employers are looking at and putting into action. Again, it only helps the employee, only helps the individual with some of these things that kind of stresses them out on a day-to-day basis. And I can only hope that the trend continues and grows and becomes more popular across all industries, across multiple employers. But again, with me going out there kind of pounding the pavement and meeting these people face to face and seeing some of these benefits from behind the curtain, if you will, vast majority of employers have yet to implement some of these trendier benefits that I've mentioned thus far.
So what do you say to those organizations that says, "Hey, Jamin, that sounds great, and I know that company X and Y is doing that, but we do not have the money to invest in that type of stuff. We can't do commuter stuff. We can't do student payments." What are some of those options for maybe those small organizations who said, "I want to do some of the stuff you're saying, Jamie, it sounds great," but are like, "Look, I'm looking at my bottom line and I can't afford that." What are some options maybe they can do? Maybe they can bring you in. I don't know. What are some more affordable things that maybe smaller companies can do that may not be able to do some of the things, the cool, trendy things, as you said, that some companies are offering?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's be honest, right? Not every employer has the bandwidth to implement some of these benefits that we're referring to here, right? So it's not fair, of course, to compare maybe a mid-sized company with a Procter and Gamble or a General Motors, right, who has the bandwidth to do this. So for those smaller companies that don't have that capacity, there are still things that they can do that are um, really effective and shows their employees that they care. So, for example, debt negotiation. Again, debt is something that we're all familiar with on certain levels, right? Now, in our generations, more than our parents and our grandparents' generations, right? We've taken on more debt, right? And having an employer that is helping to represent you, or hiring an outside firm, rather, I should say, right, to represent um, your concerns with your debt burden, still goes a long way, right? It may not be that paycheck advance, right? It may not be that commuter reimbursement, right? But there are other things that employers can do. Credit score monitoring, right? Some folks may not be aware of different independent platforms, solely independent of any employer, right? Credit Karma, free credit score, whatever the case may be, right? There's a lot of folks that are not aware of these platforms, or maybe they're aware and just haven't been motivated or aren't sure how to navigate those platforms, right? So having an employer that says, "Hey, we've partnered with freecredit.com or with Credit Karma," right? And it can be an informal partnership. It doesn't have to be anything formal, right? It's nothing more than just helping your employee create a profile, right? Helping them understand how credit works. So there are a lot of things that smaller employers can do, middle-sized employers can do, that doesn't have to bust their budget, but can still, show proactivity in really caring for their employees and, again, helping their employees out in their own personal financial life and challenges. So,
Awesome. Those are things I never thought about,
yeah.
just having those informal relationships to check your credit. Everyone doesn't know how to do that, don't know where to go to find that information. So an employer just doing that small thing can help a little bit as well. Same thing with debt. So definitely Jamin has all these little nuggets. So if you are a small business owner, you're like, hey, I can't do all the big stuff, but I can do some of those small nuggets. That's very helpful as well. So let's talk about remote work. A lot of people work remote. I don't think I would ever in my life go into an office, but so there's a rise of that as well. And so you're seeing a lot of this change in the work environment. So how can employers adapt their financial wellness initiatives to meet the needs of this diverse workforce? Because I remember working at Adidas and they would have people sometimes go in the office, whether it's educational stuff or whatnot, but I was remote. Now I loved it, don't get me wrong, but there were some things that maybe I didn't get to experience because I wasn't there in Boston and whatnot. So how can employers make sure that everyone is meeting that need that they need to have, and then those financial wellness or initiatives are equitable for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a little jealous of today's workforce because in my days during Maryland Vanguard, I would have loved to have been able to work from home, but that remote platform just wasn't available really at that time. But no, I love it. As we get further and further away from the COVID outbreak pandemic, right? Working remotely is now a very common thing, and so there are some unique benefits that employers can employ or utilize rather to again in a fair and equitable way, right? Provide really good quality benefits to those employees as well. Some of them is, for example, providing assistance programs around the clock. Some remote workers may not always work 9 to 5. Some may work, maybe a night shift, right? I mean, there's just so many different variations of working from home these days, right? So, or maybe someone that does work in the morning needs to speak with EAP, but because they are working through the day, EAP maybe closes their doors at 5 o'clock, right? So being able to provide different benefits around the clock. Providing flexible work hours, I think, is one of the easiest benefits that an employer can provide. At the end of the day, there's always that business need, right? And making sure that time slots are, bodies are in time slots and work is being done, right? But being able to, I guess, really be creative with flexibility of work hours, making sure that a parent can take a kid to the doctor, right? Or a parent can, attend a play that's during school hours, right? Or award ceremonies, or whatever the case may be, right? So, again, an employer doesn't have to be super fancy in order to be super effective. When it comes to like financial wellness challenges, recognition and rewards for an employee reaching a certain goal, right? There are some financial wellness programs out there that say, hey, over a 90-day span, if you can decrease your debt by 15%, right, then you'll receive a plaque or some sort of recognition, right? Now, I'm not a plaque person, right? I prefer money, right? But I'm just saying there are those employers out there that employ those kind of strategies, right? To make sure that the remote workers are, even though they're physically detached, they're psychologically attached, right, to what's going on at corporate headquarters with people who are more closely aligned on the floor. So again, it doesn't take a lot of ingenuity. It just takes some creativity and some effort to really reach out to those remote workers and make sure that, again, all of those benefits are equitable for everyone, whether you're in the office or working at home.
Awesome. I love that because if you go back to what you said earlier about having that debt relief, maybe, and then tying it to this 90-day program that you're talking about. That could be a really cool program to say, hey, we are going to partner, whether it's formal, informal, with this organization that's going to offer some debt relief. We're going to give a 90-day challenge. And I mean, I love plaques and trophies. I have a whole bunch of them at my daddy house. So I love it. But to your point, like making sure that the reward is equitable because everybody doesn't like to be rewarded the same way. But finding something across the board, that could be really cool challenge that people can do. And if your employer is helping you meet that, that can be really great to do as well. So, I mean, I'm hearing again a lot of little nuggets here, Jamin, that
Absolutely.
beneficial. So,
Absolutely.
did you want to add anything?
Well, yeah, I wanted, and actually, I missed this one. This one's really key, especially for remote workers. I mean, it's beneficial to everybody, right? But digital education and planning services, right? Again, we're talking about financial. I mean, it's easy to kind of for us to meander off into like other areas of a benefits program, but keeping it within the confines of financial, right? For the remote worker, making sure they have access to a digital platform, whether that be e-courses, whether it be check-ins with a with an advisor, right? And again, this is an area where most employers are falling off. I get real passionate about this because, and I'm sorry, I don't want to take over, but I got to say this real quick. So, in years past, my parents, your parents, right? They're basically the same age. They had pensions for retirement. We don't have that by and large anymore, right? Unless you work for the government or, you're a teacher, pensions are pretty much done, right? And so now retirement, the onus is on us, right? It is a self-supporting retirement platform now. And they handed over keys to people who are specialists in other areas, whether it's HR, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's accounting, whatever the case may be, right? Not everyone is a 401k a savant. So the absence of having financial professionals available readily, to their employees is a huge void, right? In helping the employee prepare effectively for retirement. I don't want to go too deep because I can really like go in on this, right? But no, it is very important. But as it relates to the remote worker, again, making sure you have that digital platform for them to tap in and learn as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And we can see your passion about that as well. So never apologize for being passionate about what you do because I love talent management. I love diversity architecture. So I never apologize for being passionate for what I do. So thank you for
Absolutely.
that. So I know a lot of people are wondering again, how in the world does diversity architecture and financial wellness actually intersect? So I would love for you, Jamin, to talk about the idea, the concept of diversity architecture and the influence that it has on developing, designing, and implementing these financial wellness programs into organizations. Like, how does that idea of diversity architecture influence maybe what you've done or maybe what organizations should do when they're putting together their programs?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, that diversity architecture is very important. It's like any other architecture, right? The structure has to be right. It has to have a solid platform, right? Or else the structure is going to collapse. And so when we're talking about diversity and how do you structure programs around that, it really, entails a corporate culture having a come to Jesus moment, right? At the end of the day, and how they implement fairness and equity across the board. Because let's face it, a diverse workforce is an effective workforce. There's so many studies and stats on increased productivity occurring solely due to the diverse workforce, right? In all industries. So being fair and equitable, being culturally sensitive, right? Understanding that you might have employees rather, right, of a certain culture, right? So when it comes to maybe having, let's go back to a digital platform of learning, right? Being able to maybe have different variations of that course so that you're speaking everyone's language. You're not necessarily speaking in a standard language where some can get it and understand fully, some may misinterpret, right? Making sure that no one is being left out. Addressing systemic inequalities, I think, is a big one. I think employers could have a really large role in this, in helping to educate. For example, mortgages. African Americans pay, on average, higher interest rates on mortgage than non-African Americans, right? In areas of lesser home values, right? So understanding, how do you credit, right? Teaching credit, really driving that home. How do you shop for homes? How do you prepare for that first mortgage, right? And being able to speak to that, still having that course designed with a core message, but being able to have that flexibility to tailor that message predicated on who you're talking to, right? And so I think that when another one is accessibility to technology, right? We talked about commuter benefits not too long ago, right? Those commuter benefits are going to be for folks by and large who don't have access to their own independent transportation, right? So I think you got to do something similar on the technology and accessibility as well. Not everybody has access to technology, right? So again, even having a digital course for some employees may be intimidating, right? Just based on the fact that they don't have access to that, they've never been trained on it, right? So all of these things have to be taken into accountability, right? When we're talking about a diverse workforce and making sure you're speaking to everyone's language. And I mean that in terms of not dialect, but of understanding.
Awesome. I mean, that was beautifully said. And as someone is who is a learning professional, to hear that is great because I think that when we hear financial wellness, we do have people like yourself that 20 plus experience, and you come in and you speak all this jargon, and some of us have no idea what you're talking about. But to be able to speak someone's language, if you will, making sure that we understand that people on different levels of understanding this stuff as well. I mean, there's been times when I'm just like, I don't understand this 401k stuff. I'm highly educated. I don't know what that means, and somebody who may not have as many degrees as me may know what that means. So we just don't assume that someone knows something because of how many letters they have to have after their name or what they don't know. So I love the fact that you spoke to the fact that, hey, we don't know what people do and don't know. So let's just, again, have different variations of that and understand that different people are at different levels in their lives. And the fact that you said, hey, some people, systematic situations may make them at a advantage or disadvantage. We all have privileges to some extent, but making sure we are aware of that when we're creating this, especially when we talk about financial wellness. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, we can talk all day about inequalities and things like that when we talk about financial wellness. So I want to ask you about the wealth gap, because there is a wealth gap between different people. And we'll just talk about from the US perspective here as well, even within people's own culture as well. Do you feel that financial education programs can contribute to narrowing that wealth gap and promoting financial equality? Do you feel that's the responsibility of employers to do that? I'm just curious of your thoughts about the wealth gap and what employers play in that role.
Man, that's a loaded question.
Right.
No, I mean that's such a great question. It's really a two-part answer. By and large, to answer your question, no, I do not think that. Here's what I think. I think that solid financial wellness programs will help the overall financial improve the overall financial literacy in this country, right? Employers have the ability, honestly, to do for their employees as an adult what schools didn't do for their future employees when they were younger, right? And that is to educate, right? To provide education. Now, in some instances, that education, a person may take that education and really run with it, right? Another individual may, do what they got to do, do what they got to do with it, and nothing else, right? They'll just make use of some of it and disparage disregard the rest, right? So there's a lot of variables as to, I guess holistically what I guess let's say universal implementation of financial wellness programs could do. I personally feel that the wealth gap is too large for just that one factor of implementation to close it, right? But I do feel as though with again universally across the board, let's just pretend that every employer who has the bandwidth to implement these programs does absolutely 100%. Folks are going to have better self-esteem. They're going to have savings. They're going to have investments. They're going to understand their 401k. They're even going to feel themselves so much that they are going to have the confidence to go out and open some E-Trade accounts, right? And or maybe some crypto accounts even, right? These are things that the average American really isn't doing at the clip that they should be doing. And a lot of it is just due to the fact that they don't know, right? They haven't been taught. Those financial resources just aren't out there. Employers have a long way to go, in my opinion. I think there's some employers doing some really good things. But again, going back to your very first question, I think it's important to hammer the fundamentals first. Let's implement some courses, some workshops around budgeting and saving. Let's implement some workshop and some platforms around understanding your taxes, understanding debt, understanding your 401k. Now, we start to do those things on a more universal platform. Then I think we can start talking about, okay, some of these other ancillary benefits that'll add to those fundamentals that maybe can start eating away a little bit out the wealth gap. But I think until we start hammering and attacking the fundamentals, um, it's going to be a question that we'll never have an answer to.
Awesome. And I love the fact that you said it's okay to start small. It's okay to start with those workshops, those
Absolutely.
trainings and things like that and build onto those bigger things, commuter and student loan relief and things like that. So it's okay to just do something small first. I do want to ask for some clarity for those that may not know. You mentioned passionately about EAP programs. Now, I've done some work with EAP programs, but we will not assume, again, we talk about assumption, right? We will not assume that everyone knows what an EAP program is. So if you do not mind sharing what an EAP program is and the benefits of that, and maybe some of your experience with the EAP program.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. EAP acronym stands for Employee Assistance Programs. These have been around for a while. Um, they are amazing programs. Anyone who has an EAP available to them, I highly suggest that you take advantage of it, even if you feel you don't need it. What the EAP looks to fulfill is providing an outlet for employees to have private, confidential is what I'm looking for, confidential conversations, right, with counselors. And these counselors will address marital issues, behavioral health issues, stress, substance abuse, right? Alcoholism and drug use. Me personally, I mean, my kids are grown and adults now, but they went through a time in their life after my divorce where there was some depression setting in, right? And I looked to my EAP when I worked at Merrill, and they pointed me in the right direction. They gave my kids some resources that were really life saving resources. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I would have known what to have done if I had not gone to EAP. I would not have. And who knows, what would have happened to my kids otherwise. And I wouldn't even want to think about it. So EAP is an amazing platform. I would say of all the benefits, of all the companies whose employees I've sat down with, a lot of companies are offering EAP in some capacity of another or another. I think it's very, very important. And I do give employers applause on that. At the end of the day, you're talking about one's health. Mental health is you can't see it, you can't touch it as you can physical health in some senses, right? But just because you can't see it and can't touch it doesn't mean it's important. It's just as important as any other variation of quality of life and health. And so, yeah, so take advantage of your EAP. Take a look at your benefits guide. If you have EAP available to you, absolutely take advantage of it, even if you feel you don't need it. It's even helpful for preventative maintenance, if you will. So I'm a huge proponent for sure.
So I've used it as well. I've had to get on the call with them before. As a talent management leader at an organization, I tapped into it for us as well, realizing that at that time that employer had not really tapped into it a lot. A lot of times, sometimes, depending on your what you have set up with them, you can get 1, 2 hours, maybe 4 hours of workshops and
Absolutely.
training. Can be financial wellness. That was one of the ones that I had us do in the organization that I worked for. So there's so many different advantages of your EAP that you want to tap into as well. And of course, Jamin and I both have utilized it personally, and then of course I've used it professionally as well as a manager in an organization. So definitely make sure you do that. So Jamin, I want you to share where people can find your information. You talked about digital learning. I think you may have a course on 401k, if I'm not mistaken. So why don't you just share with everyone where they can find your information, more about you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Certainly appreciate that. Yeah, so recently I did create an e-course that speaks to the need of 401k understanding, right? It's called Mastering Your 401k, a guide to your retirement plan. And essentially, it's an 8-module course. It's self-study. It's very cheap, only $24, right? Really, really
Accessibility,
inexpensive.
financial accessibility.
Exactly, financial accessibility, right? At the end of the day, you got to kind of walk the walk, and so, but yeah, it is available. You can also look for my podcast. It's called Everything Cha-ching. I will be it's relaunching in March. So look for a few episodes, few new episodes on that. It's can be found on Spotify primarily, Apple Podcast, Google Play, everywhere podcast play. Everything Cha-ching, you can find it. Um, I recently completed an ebook of which I have a corresponding webinar called Retirement Planning is Broken. I dusted the topic a little bit of the 401k with our conversation today, but on that platform, I go in depth and really talk about how the 401k in general is missing the ball, and some other alternatives out there that can give your long-term money very safely a lot of bang for the buck. So retirement planning is broken ebook and webinar coming soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. And if you want to hear more from Jamin, you want to hear about a case study that he's done, some real life stuff. He's given some really good examples today, but if you really want to hear him talk about a case study where he talked about how he did it and the results of that, make sure to join us at the Diversity Blueprint 2024. We put a link there. So if you are watching anywhere on Facebook, LinkedIn, you can click that link right there. It will take you right to that. Jamin is our closing presenter. So if you love this guy and you want to hear him again, he is our closing presenter. Thank you so much, Jamin. So I want to switch gears. We've heard so much about your financial knowledge and your experience, 20 plus years in the game. I want to talk about something a little bit more fun. Is that okay? Can we switch it up?
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
So, Jamin, you told me that you love sports, right? Well, you told me that your favorite sport was golf, and we're not going to talk about golf because I don't like golf. So we're not going to talk about golf at all. However, you told me you also love basketball, right? Is that true? Love
This is
basketball,
true. This is very
right?
true.
And so I read your bio, and it looks like you're from the great state of Indiana. So yeah, right.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you're from Indiana. And I know a lot about basketball, and I know that you all have some great basketball players from that great state of Indiana. So
Yes, we
I'm just
do.
curious, Jamin, who are your top three favorite basketball players to come out of the state of Indiana? Now I'm gonna just tell everybody I'm a UNC fan. Now we did lose the other day. Now you can name Sean May if you want to. That's okay. The late great Eric Montross if you want to as well, or any other Tar Heel that you want to name out of the great state of Indiana. But Jamin, who are your top three players? And you cannot say Larry Bird; he's out. So anybody else who's
what,
let
what kind of rules are there?
it's too obvious. So three people outside of Larry Bird, the best players to come out of the state of Indiana, and go.
Oh, okay, so I'm assuming I can't name myself.
No one can
oh,
validate that, so no.
okay, well, let me ask you this: do they, so that I know the rules? Because for some mysterious reason, you told me I can't name Larry Bird. So,
Nice.
do they have to be born in Indiana?
Ooh,
Born
okay.
in Indiana?
No, they could have played.
No.
They could have been. Yeah, they could have played.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I'm gonna have to take Oscar Robertson.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna have to take Reggie Miller.
Ooh. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I have to take Reggie Miller. And man, there's so many. The Larry Bird one isn't fair, but and I certainly am not going to name Sean May. I'm so sorry. So I will say Isaiah Thomas.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I will say Zeke. Yes.
I like that list. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing just a little bit about yourself personally, some of your interests. Again, I like people to see that we're more than just our career, we're more than what we do for a living, and that we do all have hobbies and things like that. And life is short. So it's really important to talk about and enjoy the things that we love as well. So
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jamin. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in to the Leadership Loft. Make sure you register for the Diversity Blueprint 2024. We're super excited to have it. We will have more of our presenters that will be joining us. Next week, we have Dr. Jennifer Manson Mitchell that's going to talk to us about accessibilities. Very excited to talk to her as well. And she may talk about some of the Seminoles, since she did teach at Florida State. I'm not sure. We may talk about that a little bit as well. So thank you so much, Jamin. Thank you to everyone. Until next time, enjoy and be safe.